Hey guys, my name is Ryan, and welcome to Overwatch Central. We'll get straight into it. Season 17 is right around the corner, and before we get stuff like Hero 31 and maybe Roadlock in the future, I figured I'd talk about the heroes that, if you're looking to play more in Season 17, these are heroes that you should definitely be playing, learning, and just practicing perhaps. And maybe some heroes that you should be trying to leave to the wayside a little bit. Before we get started though, a quick shout out to HyperX. We have been working with them for quite some time. We'll talk a bit about them later in the video, but I did want to ask, headphones or earphones? What do you guys prefer? Anyway, back to this. We're going to break it down into supports, tanks, and then DPS, trying to go over basically everybody. Even if some of them are just like, yep, they're alright, you can maybe play them. But we're going to focus on the supports first, and we're going to start with the heroes that you should definitely be playing a lot more. Ana. Ana is the S tier hero to everyone. If you're on the fence about, maybe I'm going to play and learn and try and play as much Ana as possible. Basically, every game that I get into, I'm going to try and play Ana. That is definitely the best bet. She is incredibly meta right now. Even the pro scene, which tends to be more Zenyatta based, is now switching to Ana for a multitude of reasons. I think if you are a support player that plays stuff like Lucio, Zenyatta, Mercy whenever's appropriate, then you need, and I must emphasize, need to have a decent backup Ana in a lot of situations, as it's going to be incredibly important in this meta, and especially if a role queue comes into the game with 2-2-2. If you're paired with a Zenyatta or a Baptiste player or a Lucio Mercy, Ana is never a bad option. So if you're stuck in that position where you kind of have to flex, you got to make sure that your Ana is good. So this is definitely the best season to be playing her and get good at her. Definitely the best hero to play and learn for Season 17, bar none. The other supports, it's a bit more of a murky story. Baptiste is a really good example of that. About a week ago in my competitive games, I was like, why would anybody play Baptiste when there's so many better options? And that's kind of the story that's really happening here. But I think experimenting with Baptiste and playing him a little bit if you are a support player like I've become myself isn't a bad idea, because you really learn where he's actually really good and often underestimated, and where he doesn't work. Less so maps, but more support combinations. How good is Baptiste with a Lucio? Is he good with an Ana? Is he good with a Mercy with like a bunker comp? Trying this out and experimenting to see for yourself is the best option, but for me he's definitely a question mark on how good he is. He has been used a lot more in stuff like bunker comp and has been used in that main healer role consistently, but I don't think he's the kind of hero that you can play all of the time like Ana. His ultimate especially is super situational, which can make it awful, but even just using the ultimate for yourself to increase healing once it gets fixed, or even just increasing your damage to do a little bit more, isn't really a bad shout. If you're with a Bastion, great, but if you're with a team that's running like Dive or Doomfist and Sombra, it's not really going to add much to your team. So he's okay. Brigitte is probably one of the worst heroes to want to pick up and play a lot more in Season 17. I see a lot of people saying in the comments, oh, I make her work in Plat or Diamond, she's really good there. And I'm not disagreeing that she can be really good. Even in like a 2-2-2 lineup, she isn't completely terrible. But it's just, again, there's so many better supports that could dwarf her in impact. If you're running goats, then of course play her. But much like Baptiste, there's much better options available with more utility that they can use. And like I said, it's just a bad hero to want to play and learn in Season 17, and that's what we're rating these heroes on. Lucio. So you've probably noticed all of the Papega Lucio gameplay in the background. He's a hero that I've been trying to practice and learn a lot more, and I think I've been getting better at him. I still make mistakes like everybody, but there are some situations where he obviously isn't that good, but I still feel that he's a good option that most people often overlook. His healing output isn't bad at all, I don't think. Sound Barrier is a great ultimate in a pinch, and having the ability to speed in and out with your team shouldn't be overlooked. I also really like playing Lucio because he's quite versatile in the face of different adversities. Going up against pretty good Genjis, Doomfists that are quite good. Hell, you can even run at a Widowmaker that's killing everyone to try and take some pressure off your team and survive to live another day. I'm having a lot of fun playing him and maining him, and whilst he was nerfed quite recently, he's still not a bad hero to spend your time playing, I don't think. Even on defense in situations where other options might seem a better look. I like running Lucio on second point of 2CP as an example. And you can really frag out on this hero too, and it's a lot of fun. Should you learn him in Season 17? It's up to you if you want. I'd still suggest Ana as a main option though, but of course you have to rely a lot more on mechanics, healing, game sense. Lucio you can get away with a little bit more. The last three supports I kind of want to blast through very quickly. Mercy's definitely capable of being picked up again, even one-tricked if you are a Mercy player, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Mercy is of course really good in bunker comp when paired up with a Bastion, in older fashions that we're used to, and even first point defenses on 2 CP. I wouldn't say main her in Season 17, but support players that are trying to flex that maybe are put off from playing Mercy, I'd pick her up time and again. Just see how she is, how she can have impact. Just get some playtime under your belt with her and see where she can be really good and bad, because playing Mercy in the right situation will win you games, 100%. Moira. We did a video recently talking about why players should consider playing Moira a little bit more. In short, she's a great backup crutch healer that can output a metric ton of healing, is quite strong against stuff like Genji, Doomfist and Sombra. It's just more when you want to dedicate more time to learning stuff like Ana and Zen. Moira is a bit against the grain because you don't pick up those transferable aiming and mechanical skills. It's a little bit of a different story. And finally, Zenyatta. This is an iffy one because Zenyatta isn't as strong as he used to be. It does depend on the enemy and your team compositions. If the enemy has stuff like Sombra, Doomfist, Genji, then don't pick up Zen unless you're really good at being able to deal with those heroes. If your team is lacking a lot of healing, then don't go Zenyatta. But I really like Zen in situations like when you're running Zen Ana as a combo and you're attacking something like Havana as bunker, so you're trying to create a lot of space. Those two supports in the background can do quite a lot of healing. Transcendence is good in a pinch, and Zenyatta's offensive capabilities are really strong. So I would say he's more of a neutral pick for Season 17. Very good hero in the right hands. If you practice him, you'll get a lot better for sure, but you have to be very conscious of what the enemy team is running. There's been a lot of heroes that are good and okay, so I kind of wanted to draw up a bit of a tier list to give you a good idea on where I'd rate them. It's not something that I'm really dedicated to, it's just more highlighting how Ana is a lot better than the other supports that are in and amongst each other. But of course, it's situational and dependable on what scenarios that you're in. I don't want this video to be far too long, so I'm going to try and pick up the pace a little bit. When it comes to the S tier of best heroes to play for tanks, Orisa is definitely a step ahead of everyone. She's good in bunker comp, she's good with stuff like pirate ship, but I think she's also very good when you have too many DPS and not enough tanks or supports. She's a really good hero just being able to stall on a point, create a little bit of space for herself. She recently got buffed now that her reload isn't affected by you putting down a shield. Nice quality of life change in there for her, and she's just very strong in her own right and will just die a lot less than the other main tanks in the game currently. So I would say that she is the best tank to try and pick up and play a lot more in Season 17 if you are a tank player. When it comes to the off-tank options, Hog is obviously going to be used up there. Very good combinations with stuff like Orisa, a lot of damage, a lot of pick potential that you can have, and self-survivability. But I did want to highlight D.Va. D.Va seems to just be completely dropped by a lot of players because she got nerfed recently, but I definitely think the players should still play her. When you have more DPS heroes being used like McCree, Pharah, Junkrat, all very popular right now, D.Va's defense matrix is still a very good ability that can do quite a lot. I would say in those situations that if you are in that off-tank position and you're not comfortable with your Hog, i.e. you're not following up with your Orisa's Halt with your hook, you're not really getting those picks, and you feel like you're just feeding the enemy team a buffet of ult charge, go D.Va. I think Orisa D.Va is still a good combination to run, and she's very diverse. A really strong ultimate, I think. Self-destruct is really good at getting an elimination. They can really ease up those team fight gridlocks where nobody's dying and nothing's really happening. And again, she can do a lot of damage in her own right. So I think D.Va's still up there as a hero that you can definitely pick, learn and play. But if you are an off-tank player, you want to be practicing your Roadhog as much as possible, go to D.Va when necessary. Winston and Wrecking Ball are in similar positions. They're okay, they're alright in really good sort of triple DPS scenarios where you run and dive. Winston and Wrecking Ball can do a lot. You can interchange both of these heroes, but I think that Wrecking Ball is just a little bit better than Winston right now. Depends if your team needs a shield or not. I'd say that both these heroes are good, but not as good as the heroes that we've already highlighted, so they're sort of middle of the pack. It really does depend on the map that you're on, and what composition your team and the enemy team are running, and whether you play Winston or Wrecking Ball. Finally, Reinhardt and Zarya. I wouldn't necessarily say that they are bad heroes to play for Season 17. There are certain situations where Reinhardt and Zarya is still a good combination. Even if 222 does get added into the game, Reinhardt and Zarya I don't think will drop off completely. A lot of people say that Reinhardt's pick rate will just evaporate if these changes come in. There are definitely some situations where you can make it work, but out of the 3 main tank off tank duos of Orisa Hog, Winston D.Va, Reinhardt and Zarya is the worst at the moment in terms of situational impact. Here's a quick tier list. Again, don't read it as gospel, don't be upset that I'm rating it this way. It's just more to give you an idea on Orisa Hog, D.Va being really good, Reinhardt, Zarya not being as good. Now we get onto the long part of DPS heroes, and I don't want to go over everybody necessarily because there's so many options, so I'm going to start by showing the tier list here. Again, don't read this as gospel. For example, don't be like, why have you rated Genji and Torbjorn below Junkrat? I will go over some explanations of certain heroes, but it's better me doing this than saying, oh yeah, Hanzo's good, Junkrat's good, Bastion's good, when you all have various degrees on how good they are. We'll start with the heroes at the top, which come as no surprise. McCree, after his buff, is incredibly strong right now, and I think that would be made even stronger if Role Lock 222 comps gets locked into the game. McCree is going to be the number 1 DPS to pick up in a lot of situations. His damage output is strong. His ultimate is still, middle of the pack in terms of impact, probably a little bit lower than average, but there's no denying that McCree is a really good hero to play right now. If you are a DPS player looking for something to main for Season 17, then McCree is your partner there. Sombra is very strong, very impactful, but of course has the caveat of being not as useful in solo play. You know what I mean? You need to communicate a lot. You need to be using voice comms and leading with your team. If you are a silent Sombra player, you're not going to have the same amount of impact. You might still be really strong, but I think you can be a lot stronger if you communicate with your team. But be very careful with what your team is running and what the enemy team is running. If your other DPS is running something like a Widowmaker, your team might lack a little bit of just overall team damage. So you have to be hyper aware of what's going on around you if you want to play more Sombra. Don't just try and one-tricker, you're going to piss off a lot of people. Some other good DPS options right now are certainly the snipers. Widowmaker, if you're just really good aim, you can get a lot of picks. Really punish the mistakes of a lot of players that have got used to running tanks a lot and are now running much squishier DPS heroes overall. Doomfist is really solid right now, I think, certainly in combination with Sombra against tanks, and you can really bully the enemy team. But certainly a high up option for me right now is Hanzo. You have Shield Break, you can do a ton of damage. His ultimate is really good at catching people off, and just having stuff like the Sonar Arrow to gauge information when the enemy team aren't quite sure whether you know where they are or not is a really strong thing to have. The B and C tier here, you could sort of mix and match really on their impact. I'm not 100% sold on the positioning and where I've put them, but I would definitely say that Junkrat is a pretty decent hero to play in a lot of situations nowadays. Not only can he do a lot of damage, with D.Va being played less, that is damage that's going through for free. There's no Zaryas really to sort of charge up on them too, so you're really good at breaking Orisa shields, maybe getting a cheeky kill now and again. But Riptire I think is also a really solid ult of just stopping team fights as they happen. Obviously the higher you climb, the less impactful it is, but considering the majority of the play base is around gold, platinum, diamond level, a Riptide that can get one kill on a support in a team fight that you might be losing changes the dynamic of the fight considerably. So certainly in my games I've been impressed with how much Junkrat has been able to do, and that's why I've rated him a little bit higher than some of the other heroes. Pharah, for similar reasons that I mentioned, a lot of damage that you can put out. Yes, McCree's pick rate has gone up, which makes it harder for Pharah, but if you're a decent enough Pharah, I think you can still get around it. Ashe, much like Junkrat, the higher you climb, the less impactful she becomes, but her dynamite is really good. Bob, in a lot of situations, can catch a lot of people off, even if it is just to get one pick. They're my wildcard heroes, those three that I've mentioned, with everybody else below being really good in the right hands, but again, very situational, especially Bastion, Torbjorn and Mei, Symmetra. All of these heroes especially have been heroes that have suffered in the past, but now I don't really complain if we have a Torbjorn on our our team unless it's a situation where you're like, we could use another DPS, you know what I mean? If you want to play these heroes, really look at where they're good and where they're being used. Well, finally, the last DPS hero that I felt was worth highlighting, Reaper. He is not in a good state right now. He's had all the buffs in the world, but still his impact just isn't quite there. However, if we are going into sort of like a role lock 2-2-2 thing, I think Reaper is going to suffer the most. He is decent at lower ranks for sure, but his impact really does drop off much quicker than any of the other DPS heroes as you start to climb. Therefore, I wouldn't recommend learning or playing him, at least right now. And that is literally all of the heroes in the game currently. Hero 31 might throw a complete spanner into the works with all of this, but these are definitely heroes that I would recommend you play and learn, and maybe some other heroes to avoid. The reason why I started this video talking about headphones or earphones is because I wanted to talk a little bit about the HyperX Cloud earbuds. Now, me personally, when I'm out and about at least, I prefer having earphones in instead of a big headset. So if you're the same as that, you'd prefer earphones, then do definitely check out these. The ear quality is pretty good, and it's also very good for in-game audio too if you're trying to play. So if that does tickle your fancy, you can check them out in the description and the pinned comment below. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Let me know if you agree or disagree with certain hero picks, and I'll see you very soon. Take care. See you then.